We are actively importing poverty, terrorism, and the world's problems through our southern border, and I'm not sure what for. It's not as if we are in short supply of people who hate this country already in this country. The show starts now. Before we get into the college green hairs, the queers for Palestine, and the straight-up terror sympathizers who are infesting our streets and college campuses, I want to first take a moment to acknowledge two of the most creative and ironic Halloween tributes from yesterday. First up, the son of Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who dressed up as Ukrainian president and pain in the ass, Zelensky. Now, the costume didn't take much effort, just a green tracksuit. The same amount of effort Zelensky himself puts into his appearances when shaking us down for billions. But what a great Halloween costume, truly. You know, I can't think of a better outfit to wear when asking Joe Biden for things, billions of dollars, weapons, or candy, than a Zelensky costume, so bravo. And speaking of Secretary of State, the former one, who just will not go away no matter how many times she's asked to, Hillary Clinton, also posted an incredibly accurate Halloween tribute. Hillary as a witch. Finally, some self-awareness from old HRC. But that's where Democrat self-awareness ends. So back to reality that is far scarier than Halloween. The humanitarian aid we've sent to terrorists, yeah, apparently there is no indication it's been used for terrorism.
I want to be very clear on this. We have seen no indication, none, that Hamas has gotten their hands on any of the humanitarian assistance that has gone in. None of it.
Comforting. Let's ask another Biden administration head to clarify.
I think the question I'd like to ask is, can you guarantee us that no taxpayer money, no U.S. taxpayer money, went to fund the attack that Hamas delivered in Israel on October the 7th?
So we have, and we've had from day one, and we'll obviously get back to you in response to this letter, a robust monitoring, inspection, verification system for the assistance that goes to any international organization, and including.
Can you guarantee, though, that U.S. taxpayer dollars didn't go to Hamas to help fund this attack on October the 7th?
So everything that we're doing in terms of making sure that the assistance is used for purposes for which it's designated, not for other purposes. As I said, we have a robust system in place.
A robust monitoring system, huh? Is that the same robust system the Biden administration uses at our southern border? Because if so, we should all just cut a check to Hamas right now and get it over with. Joining me now with her take and her expert analysis is editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, it's great to have you. I've been excited to talk to you about all of this. So I want to start right where I left off there, talking about the money that is going to humanitarian aid in Gaza, in Palestine. How confident are you in our robust monitoring system that Hamas has not gotten their hands on any of this money that we've worked tirelessly to earn?
It's impossible, right? So when you give anything, whether it's money, a bottle of water, gasoline to Gaza, you are in effect giving it to Hamas. Hamas is the governing body of Gaza. So whenever we get a death toll number, whenever we get any reports out of the Gaza health ministry or whatever body that they're sending it from, we're getting it from Hamas. And I think that's something that reporters, when you're watching these press briefings and you're watching them, you're like, is this the Hamas press corps? Because the questions are extremely one-sided, not realizing that we're talking about a terror organization. We're not talking about innocent Palestinians. And if you do want to talk about innocent Palestinians, yes, they are victims, but they're victims of Hamas. They're victims of their own kind. As to the Biden administration, there are many ways in which taxpayer money did go into this attack, and I will tell you why. We empowered Iran's regime. We gave them, whether you want to talk about the $6 billion, and people say, well, the $6 billion didn't get to them yet, and that I'm talking about the $6 billion that was given on top of a already lopsided prisoner exchange. We've given them many more billions of dollars, whether it was under President Obama or under President Biden, removing vital sanctions that allowed Iran's regime to go out there and make $60 to $90 billion on their own in oil sales. We helped them with their revenue. And we know that the Iran regime funded this attack. We also know that it wasn't just Hamas, it was other factions inside the Palestinian territories as well, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad, perhaps the PA. The American taxpayer gives money to the Palestinians. President Trump discontinued that aid because he said, look, we know that money is going to terrorists. And why do we know that? Because they have a pay-to-slay program. What does that mean? People who die in line with their duty of killing Jews get their families get monthly stipends for the rest of their lives. U.S. taxpayer money was going to pay for that program. So Donald Trump came along and said, nope, we're going to cut that program. Within the first weeks of Biden's presidency, he said he will reinstate that aid. And guess what? No preconditions. There wasn't even a memo on the check that said, please don't kill Jews with this money. U.S. taxpayer money that was going towards terrorism, of course, and not for the people of Gaza. If you've ever been to the region, which I have been many times, maybe 20 times, and I've been to Gaza, I've been to the West Bank. Gaza can become the Saint-Tropez of the Middle East. They can make so much money on their own in terms of tourism and just be prosperous, but they don't, because their leadership uses every single penny they have for terrorism, as was demonstrated by the attack on October 7th.
So Lisa, as somebody that's familiar with the region and has been to the region, this is the question that I have and a lot of people who support Israel and are watching this unfold have. So I want you to be very honest with me. The average Palestinian, there's a lot of discussion about Palestinians, of course, right now, a lot of people that have no knowledge, as you do, of that part of the world. The average Palestinian civilian that's not a member of Hamas, not in Hamas leadership, is not going and actually carrying out attacks. If you talk to the average Palestinian on the streets pre-October 7th, were those people friendly towards Israel, indifferent towards Israel, indifferent towards Jews, or are they born and bred with an innate hatred for Jews and really Americans? What are these people like? And of course, we can't classify everybody in a monolith, but by and large, what's the situation?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we can talk about before October 7th and after October 7th, right? So behind closed doors, I mean, when the media is not looking, when the New York Times and the BBC and the AP aren't making headlines, the Palestinian people, many of them were actually protesting against Hamas before October 7th. Where are those protesters now? I mean, that's really the difference between, let's say, the Iranians that came out onto the streets for a whole year about the Masa Amini protests. That was the difference between them. They have differentiated themselves from their government. Regardless of what their government does, the Iranian people, for the most part, will say, that doesn't define us. That's not who we are. We hate them more than you do. The Palestinian people, they fall into many different categories. Some of them are still mad at Hamas, but behind closed doors. They would never air their dirty laundry because their unity or their hatred towards Israel and the Jews is much more than their hatred towards Hamas. The second category of Palestinians are just born into it. I mean, and from a young age, this is their indoctrination, right? So the math books from a young age say, if I kill 2 Jews today, 2 Jews tomorrow, how many Jews have I killed in total? They see the weapons being hidden in their schools. This is the culture that they're raised with. The songs talking about, if I become a martyr and I kill Jews, I will go to heaven. This is in their DNA. So that's I would say a good portion of Palestinians as well. And there are others who are very afraid of speaking out, but that they understand. They're the ones who would rather live under Israel, because the Arabs who live under Israel are much more prosperous. They have jobs, they have regular lives. They're not indoctrinated. They're not living under terror, and they're given rights in Israel. And there are those who are living in the Palestinian territories that want to speak out, but they're very fearful. Look, you think Hamas is going to give them an easy time if they're speaking out against Hamas? No, they'll kill them. They have no qualms with that. And that's why we don't see as many courageous Palestinians coming to speak out, even the very few who would like to.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was probably going to be the answer here. So it puts Israel in a really tough spot. I mean, every day, if you look at social media, which has become really a black hole vacuum in the last several weeks, but a lot of people calling for ceasefire, saying Israel needs to stop the civilians. There's just been a dust up again last night and today about, well, Israel is targeting refugee camps and settlements. And it's very hard to separate fact from fiction.
Right.
But then we see directly coming from Hamas them saying, you know, we will do whatever we have to do. We will erase Israel. So it's hard when you have these competing narratives for the average person who doesn't have a foreign policy background to decide which side they're on, if we can even say their sides. So help them understand the situation.
Okay, the fact that Hamas carried out an attack of, I mean, it was ISIS exponential to a different degree. I mean, the fact that we have to talk about taking sides when there was such a barbaric attack on innocent civilians, young children, women being raped on the streets and being dragged through Gaza where people are handing out sweets. The fact that people think they have to take sides is crazy to me. That's first and foremost. Tomi, the issue here is that facts do not define the narrative in this situation. If they did, there wouldn't be sides. People would understand that Hamas is the issue. Iran's regime pulling the puppet strings and funding so many different terror proxies right now, trying to get the United States into a war. That is the problem, and that is the root of the problem. Social media tells a different story. College campuses tell a different story. Is it truly about land or policies or how the Palestinians are being treated when Jews are being beaten up on the streets of New York or LA? It's not. It's absolutely not. Those kids on college campuses that are protesting, could they even place Gaza or Israel or Yemen or Iraq on a map? Absolutely not. Could they define the Palestinian problem in 2 sentences if their lives depended on it? No. 99% of them cannot. So what it comes down to is Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. This has become a justifiable bigotry. I mean, what other group would this be accepted for? I mean, would we be able to do this against any other minority group? Jews make up 2% of the United States' population, but they make up over 60% of hate crimes in the United States. And this is before October 7th. After October 7th, that number has gone up 400% in terms of the incidences of anti-Semitism. Those kids on college campuses, what do they know about this situation? What do they know about the nuances of this situation? It's twofold, right? It's a lot of these families that have brainwashed their children to believe that Jews are bad, that Israel must be erased. And it's also the woke, the social justice gurus who believe that if you're gay, you have to hate Jews. If you are queer, you have to hate Jews. If you are trans, you have to hate Jews. If you are for women's rights, you have to hate Jews. It just goes down the checklist. And it's absolutely the opposite. If you go to Israel, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's the only place where women outnumber men in places of work, in universities, in tech. You know, they have a gay pride parade. Try getting any of those rights among Palestinians in any other Arab nations. And speaking of Arab nations, where are they? Why aren't people calling out really the elephants in the room? There's so many elephants in the room, but the main one being there are 21 Arab states. I mean, they're surrounded by how many? And they're not doing anything. Jordan, nothing. Egypt, nothing. Why don't they help them? All they can do is sit there and point fingers at Israel. Why is this Israel's problem? Why should Israel care more about the fate of Palestinian people than the Palestinians do, than the Jordanians do, than the Egyptians do, than Hamas does, than the Palestinian authorities under Mahmoud Abbas does? And these are all the basic questions that nobody's asking. It's only about one thing, and that's anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. And we must, as Americans, call it out. Because as you know, Tomi, first they come for the Jews, and then for everybody else.
I'm glad that you brought up these other Muslim nations not stepping in to help these so-called refugees. That's a question that I've been begging on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, for several days now. It feels like Egypt, Jordan, these other Muslim nations, it feels like they know something that we don't. That they don't want to bring these people into their country, resettle them in their country, which is a border country, which would be much easier to absorb them into an already Muslim nation right next door, right? But they don't want them, and they've made it very clear that not only do they not want them, they will not accept them under any circumstances. So is there something that we're missing? Why do these nations not want to? It almost seems like to me like New Yorkers not wanting to bring in people from New Jersey, unless there's something about people from New Jersey that we're not familiar with. Can you please help us break it down?
Exactly right. And this has been for years. And look, on our end, the myth has always been there will never be peace in the Middle East unless there's peace among Israelis and Palestinians. And the Abraham Accords under Donald Trump really blew that myth away and said, you know what? We can sidestep this issue. And there are many moderate Arab nations that don't really hate Israel. They've been told to hate Israel because the Palestinians are Muslim and they're their brothers and they're supposed to, but they're losing out, right? They're losing out on tourism. They're losing out on technology that they can get from Israel. They're losing out on trade deals that they can, private and public trade deals that they can get with Israel. And the Abraham Accords have been tremendously successful. You look at the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, all of them signing on to the Abraham Accords, and Saudi Arabia wanting to sign on to the Abraham Accords. So the issue isn't really Israel. The issue is keeping this narrative in place. Nobody wants to deal with the Palestinian issue. They want to place it on Israel. Now, the Jordanians are literally blood with the Palestinians. That they're literally the same people. And Queen Rania comes with her head-to-toe designer look on CNN, and she starts crying her crocodile tears about the Palestinians. But Christiane Amanpour, who is a faux journalist, didn't turn around and say to her, "But what have you done? What did your country do for the Palestinians?" It's very easy to blame the Jews, but why is it a Jewish problem when the Jews have offered a two-state solution multiple times over the last 75 years and even prior to that? Tomi, there were deals that would have given the Palestinians a bigger country than Israel, but they didn't want it. You know why? Because for them, Israel existing, even next to them, even in a smaller state next to them, was a non-starter. And so this hatred has caused them this life, this fate over and over again. People talk about Gaza being an open air prison. People talk about Gaza being free the Palestinians. Hello, the Palestinians are free. They are free. They received Gaza. The Israelis evacuated the last family from Gaza in 2005 and handed over to the Palestinians and said, "Okay, this is yours, all you." What did they do with it? Even the pipes that Israel gave them for clean water, they used for bomb making. Every single turn, every single penny they got, and they voted in Hamas in 2007. And if people say, "Oh, they didn't vote them in, Hamas pushed their way in," okay, get onto the streets and protest. Don't defend them. Don't defend them over there in Gaza. Don't defend them in the West Bank, and don't defend them on college campuses or in protest in London and Rome and New York and LA. Stop defending Hamas. If the problem is Hamas, why don't we call it out as globally? Why doesn't everyone stop and say it's Hamas? Just the way we would if, let's say, Hamas had attacked Belgium. Everyone would be like, "Oh my God, the poor Belgians." But all of a sudden, we're defending Hamas and blaming the Jews. Why? Because it's just pretext to blame the Jews.
What's interesting to me is that there's another situation going on with Russia and Ukraine. And I don't hear anybody on the left taking the side of Russia, but they're quick to take the side of Hamas. Very interesting here. Russia invades Ukraine. We support Ukraine. Hamas attacks Israel. We support Hamas. So interesting here. The brainwashing, the propaganda is certainly much more streamlined coming from that side. It's a well-oiled machine. Lisa, we're going to keep discussing this. We appreciate your insight for somebody that's been there, somebody who's seen it, somebody who has the knowledge that can correct a lot of the social media narratives. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for all your work.
I appreciate you so much. All right, since October 7th, everyone and their mother has become a foreign policy expert. And while we are all entitled to our opinions, perhaps calling on celebrities to fix a religious war that's been raging for generations isn't the most realistic approach. It's time for Final Thoughts. It's a weird time to be alive, folks. We've got gays in the streets advocating for male tampons one day and for Palestine and Hamas the next. And while I'm sure a lot of these people are well-meaning morons, it doesn't fix the moron part of that equation. So here's an idea. All of these pro-Hamas, free Palestine folks should be sent over to Gaza to personally assist with the humanitarian effort. Don't forget your drag costumes, weirdos. I'm sure there'll be a big hit over there. But if we're being honest here, half the country honestly doesn't give two craps about what's going on in the Middle East unless Taylor Swift were to go there. And while that might seem like blissful ignorance in such a tumultuous time as this, perhaps it's for the best. Because what's worse? Celebrities commenting on the situation with little to no knowledge of the situation. And what's even worse than that? Fans of celebrities expecting said celebrities to be the answer and the cure. Earlier this week, Selena Gomez put out this post on her social media. doing what she, as a celebrity with no knowledge of the situation in Israel and Palestine, should do. Nothing. Do nothing. Say nothing. But that didn't satisfy her fans or the trolls who are quite upset that Selena Gomez, a pop singer and actress, isn't doing enough to support Palestinians. Excuse me, what in the actual hell is Selena freaking Gomez supposed to do about a war in Gaza? She has hundreds of millions of social media followers, and that means it's her duty to take a side that's going to piss off hundreds of millions regardless, and somehow that's going to do what? Who is Selena Gomez going to save? The best thing she could offer is a skincare routine, and I have a feeling Hamas isn't interested. This right here is a symptom of a much broader disease, idol worship. Celebrities should not be expected to solve international conflicts because A, they can't, and B, they can't. So let's all just take a collective chill pill and leave these people alone. When celebrities try to stay in their lane, for the love of God, let them. Those are my final thoughts from Nashville. God bless and take care.